So today we're going to talk about,
I have a question, Mehul.
yeah, go ahead.
That's sprint ceremonies or meetings.
Mhm.
So at first, sprint planning says 1 to 2 hours meeting at the beginning of every sprint, and
Yes.
daily stand-up meeting is for 5 to 15 minutes. Then what's that meeting? Sprint planning,
And
one to
planning
two
is,
hours meeting.
this is where you pull stories from the back end and you decide which stories that you're going to be able to finish within the 2 weeks window. And um, and then you commit to it and you assign those stories to certain developers. So hold on 1 second, Sangeeta. Um, I need to, this is my new laptop and it's opening up in black mode. I'll be offline for like 2 minutes. Let me change this back to a white light mode. Right, guys, I'm back. It's the settings icon here, and then went into this app theme, changed it to dark to light, and then that became lighter. So, Sangeeta, just really quickly going back into sprint planning. I don't want to go any deeper because I have other topics to cover. So, sprint planning, it's again, your answer is going to be, what is sprint planning? Then you're going to say it's a 1 to 2 hours of meeting, happens at the beginning
Okay.
of each sprint, where we pull only the only the highest priority stories to be developed. What else happened here? Stories stories get developed, assigned to certain developers, and developers assign story points to the stories. Okay? If you can say this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things, you have answered this question better than anybody out there in the market. In fact, even the ones that have experience and never really studied these properly, they won't be able to articulate all of these points in the interview. So to study this, that's gonna be excellent. If you can say this in a full sentence, mix it up. Doesn't have to be always in the same order. Come up with your own sentence. You don't have to memorize it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Go ahead and unmute yourself now. Oh, sorry, mute yourself. Yeah. All right. Today's topic is test planning and development. And what you're going to learn today, some of the things. How to write a classic test case. You're going to learn how to write a Gherkin test case. That's pretty much it. Tomorrow we'll talk about how you plan those and so forth. Your homework, you can start. You're going to be writing test cases for this homework, and so write test cases and put them in TestRail. It's putting them in TestRail is not due until next weekend, so don't panic if you don't have TestRail. And tomorrow I'm going to show you a demo on how to put these test cases in TestRail and create test run and so forth. So that's going to be tomorrow. So let's just focus on two things today: is how do we write test cases and what are test cases. So starting with the test case again, like what is a test case? Is a set of instructions or steps to validate a feature functionality. That's pretty much it. But over here, what you're doing is you are comparing two things. Expected behavior versus actual behavior. These two words are huge. This is like you're going to live with these words, expected versus actual. So you're going to compare what was expected and what is actual. And based on your analysis of these two behaviors, you're going to determine whether it is a pass or a fail, if there's a bug, or the feature is good and ready to go to production. Okay. Now, before we head down that road, who can tell me what are the STLC lifecycle phases of STLC lifecycle? Phases of STLC, software testing lifecycle. The first phase is requirements gathering. Yes, requirements gathering.
Analysis.
Creating RTM.
Yeah, that's creating RTM would be more specific task. inside one of these steps, but you want to be like very general right now. If they ask you what are phases, just like a very vague, over the top kind of headline. So you could say requirements gathering,
Test planning.
planning. Yeah. Sometimes they'll
Test
go hand in
development.
hand. And then you can say design and development is your next, design and test development is your next phase. And then you got your test execution. That's correct.
Execution.
Very good. Very good. Test execution is your next step. Then what?
Test closure.
Report. Test closure. Report.
Test closure or report. So test report or, sorry, test report or closure, meaning you're done. And yeah, you don't want to finish it that way, like it's all over. Even after you die, you come back here, like next life. You want to throw it off with the word called maintenance. That's maintenance. Okay. So you want to finish it off, like, meaning you go back and you keep on doing the same thing for new test cases, old test cases, and so forth. So right now, this is where we live. It's test design and development. So tomorrow I'll show you the test execution part of that. Let's go ahead and look at what is this test case that we're going to have to develop. All right. We're going to start with something called a classic test case. I'm going to go in flow and you can ask me questions and I can kind of change what I have in mind versus what you need for me to explain this to you. So no rush. A classic test case is also the same thing as a test case. It does the same thing, a set of instructions and steps to validate a feature. You're comparing expected versus what is actual. Maybe I need to elaborate this just a little bit more before I go into the design of it. What is expected? Expected is, who can tell me, where am I going to find this expected behavior?
Well,
Planning phase.
The SRS document. So in your SRS document, you're going to find the expected behavior. Basically what the product owner wants. Whatever they want, whatever the client want, that is your expected behavior. And actual is what you see on the application. If what you see on the application doesn't match with what the product owner wants, then there is a bug. Then there's an issue or a defect that you need to report to your team of developers, your manager. And they're going to put that ticket in the backlog. And if it's a high priority, like they gotta fix it now, they're going to pull it into the current sprint, or might say, we're full in this sprint, nobody has more time to work on that. We're going to pull that into the next sprint. So it could go farther. All right. Now, with these in mind, let's take a look at a classic test case. But before we develop, let's go ahead and create a sample. Your test cases come from your expected behavior, which is more like an SRS document. So let's take a look at a sample SRS document from a real life perspective, right? So let's go back into our Priceline that we keep using. There is a feature. Everything that you see in Priceline is a feature. The very first feature that you're going to interact with in Priceline is your sign in, because that really gives you access to your personal data. This is where you come in and then you start making a solid reservation. So this is one of the major ones. So let's say if I was going to create a SRS document, how would it look like? Obviously, I'm not going to write up the whole thing because it can take like weeks for a business analyst to write up. But so let's say sample SRS. A business analyst is going to go in and for Priceline, what they will do some numbering scheme, like let's say A1, and they might say login. That's a big overarching feature is login. And then there might be like a B1 or B2, some other things. And then there could be a C1 and C2, another thing. And let's say D is going to be make hotel reservation. Hotels. So basically they're naming this as the same as this page right here, hotels. So let's go ahead and write up some scenarios here. So for login, they could break this down into further, saying 1.1 is going to be new users, and 1.2 could be existing users. Yeah. Hotels could be one room reservation, group reservations. All right. And then they can go deeper into this and say 1.1a, new users should be able to create a login with their emails. Notice if I go here, if I go into sign in, you can put your email and password. If you don't have already, you can use this button called create account. So more specifically, they could be writing like this, that a new user should be able to use create account button to create a login using their email. Look at another scenario. You can also log in with your Google, Facebook, or sign in with Apple. And so those become some of the other features that they wanted. 1.1b would be a new users should be able to log in or create account with their Facebook ID. All right. And you get the picture that it's going to be another one right here for Google and Apple ID and so forth. What about existing users? So they're going to have all of these criteria here. So basically 1.2.1, and within that, it's going to have 1.1 is existing valid users should be able to log in, and invalid users should not be able to log in. That means if you have proper credentials, you can log in. But if you never signed in, we don't want any hackers to go in there. This becomes a positive test case. A positive test case because you're expecting that whole login to work. This becomes a negative test case because you're going to be trying to hack in yourself and make sure that the system is capable of not letting you log in. And because you're trying to do the opposite of what is expected behavior is of logging in, this test case becomes a negative test case. Meaning, here's what you're going to do. You're going to try to put in a fake username, a fake email, let's say Ghazi Hussein. And you're going to try to put in some random things and click sign in. And what you expect it to say is invalid email address. So that becomes your expected behavior, and you're going to test to see whether that displays or not. That becomes more into the details. But you get the idea of how these SRS documents are set up. Now, I'm going to jump from, yeah, go ahead.
So in existing user, is there any option that there might be something happen like the existing user may forget his ID or password? In that case, one option may be the recovered ID or password. Is there any scope to add that one?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, you know, like I told you that I'm not even this thing can go so big right here, this login. I am only scratching the surface. I'm not even there of how many requirements that this could be like 10 pages right here. Just the title could be 10 pages, and I'm only in like 4 lines. So everything that you see here, this you could live week on developing test cases on this window alone. Because look at this. Not only can you be testing it with fake username or ID, but one of your test scenarios, you just put in the ID and leave this blank and then hit sign in and then see what happens. You need to test it that way. You have to put a fake one here, test it. Put a fake one here, leave this blank and test it. Put a fake one and mix it up and then test it. You have to create an account and test it. You have to click on this forget password. First, your positive test case is going to be you are really going to put in a real login email address and see if it works. If valid users are able to get a reset password link or not. But you're also going to put in a hacker level. I mean, maybe a valid email, but you never really signed in. You want to see that if I can put in an email that I never signed in to see if I get a password reset link. And you have to test that to see if the system is broken. I promise you, this has already been tested by their team many, many times, and they test it every week when they release a little bit of change on this website. Okay. So again, we don't have the scope of going through everything in our few hours of training. So we're only going to live here, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to build these test cases so that you learn how to build a test case. Okay. Your job is not to write up this. It's going to be already written up, or at least they will tell you what the requirements are. I just want to throw in a couple more here. One room reservation, let's say one under that could be like 1.1. Make a room reservation with default reservation for coming weekend. And they can go more and more scenarios they see, more test cases they can, or more requirements they can have here. Group reservations might be that you group over 10 reservations. We're not going to go there, but I just need to teach you how to write a test case. So I'm going to stop right here, and we're going to start building these test cases here, okay? Some of these test cases. So let's take a look at some of the components before I write the test case. Components of a classic test case. All right, these are some of the things that you need to build a test case. And number one is test scenario. What is a test scenario? Who remembers?
A test scenario is what to do.
Yes.
I mean, yeah.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yes. Like this is the main target in very brief, like in a class. So you are teaching, you are going to give a lecture today on the test planning and development. That is the test scenario. And yeah, so right now, like this is the test planning and development. Today's lecture that is the test planning. I mean test scenario.
Yes. So it's the title. So in
The
short,
title of the test case. Yes.
yeah, the title. In brief, title of the test case. So you're going to need that. I put it on the very number one importance. I said number one because it's like you must have that. Not necessarily in a specific order, but it's like you must have the title of the test case. Now, along with title of the test case, sometimes there are test numbering. Unique number is assigned. Assign. S-S-I-G-N-E-D. Assign. That number you're going to see TestRail will automatically assign. When you put a test case in the TestRail, or TestRail will automatically assign a unique number to that test case. Why? Because it's going to be easy for you to go into that or look for it, kind of like a record for that test case. You'll see more of that usability later. Then you have something called precondition. Know these by heart because they will ask you about these words. What's a precondition in a test case? This is how they're going to ask you a question on. Precondition is the data you must have before you can even execute the test case. Right? That's your precondition. The data you must have, they must be given to you. You can't create it. They have to give it to you. That's your precondition. Because it's like, if I don't have it, I can't test this. So you must have it. Here's a pop quiz. I want to test this hotel room. I want to make this reservation here. Who can tell me what could be a precondition on this test case of me trying to make a hotel reservation? Guesses are welcome.
Find your hotel.
Yeah, I can find a hotel here without anything blocking me.
So it is the internet connection.
Yes. As far as you can go, that is accurate. The internet connection, you can call it a precondition. See, it can be as basic as that. What else? Now it's pretty much given that your company is going to give you the internet connection when you're in your office or you have it already. But what more importantly, for this particular test case, you need user name and password. You need a fake username and fake password that's going to log you in first. If you don't log in and you make the reservation, it won't let you make a reservation because you're going to need that. What else are you going to need to make that reservation that must be given to you that you cannot create it yourself? Anyone want to take a guess? Think of a reservation. You want to make a reservation. What other test data? What other test data? Test data that you must have, that must be given to you,
Authorization or permission?
must be given. Your credit card information. A fake credit card information. You need a fake address associated with that credit card information. They have to give you all this in stuff before you can even go ahead and make a find a hotel, book that hotel, put in all these numbers, information, like look at this, Houston, Texas, let's say, and I go in and put in these dates, done, find a hotel, choose your room. Let's say I book this one, book now, and all of this information, first name, last name of the user. You need that credit card information to put in here, billing address, and then you have to hit complete booking. And with that credit card information, everything is going to be fake, but it's going to work. They're going to give you something that's going to work. And then you're going to hit a complete booking and then see if the booking process worked or not. Do you get a confirmation number after the booking? That's going to be your validation to see if the feature works or not. Okay. Any questions about precondition before we move in?
So in a word, the last point that you mentioned, in a word, can we say that this is authorization and permission or something like that?
Yes. Anything. Just see, the whole idea of precondition is like any information that you're going to need ahead of time from them
Mhm.
for you to follow and complete the testing of that particular feature.
All right. got it.
So this is not a complete list, by the way. You can argue and you'll be right if there's more things needed. There's generally a lot more needed. And you don't know until you actually try to test that feature. One day it might happen that they gave you all this and you're like, but I got blocked because I need one more item. I need, I don't know, something. If I try to make it up right here, pretty much, yeah, you need the first name and last name. You need first name and last name. You can't make it up unless they ask you to make up a random name. But you might say, I need a first name and a last name. This first name and a last name could go pretty deep down. What does that mean? That means this, you could be a gold member, you could be a silver member, and there's this levels right here. See this VIP gold? Based on your name, there could be a different categories. So it could diverse out, saying that you may need to test this test case with 4 sets of names. One, this guy is gold member. And then you have a first name and last name of somebody who is a platinum member. Because you're expecting some other features to open up for this guy because he's like on the top level. So again, this is not end all be all, and whatever you need to do your test cases, you make the call. Or when you're writing your test cases, you determine what another tester is going to need before he or she will be successfully able to test this feature. Something that they don't have to cook up the information themselves, but you give it to them. The next thing is test steps.
One question.
Mhm.
That is, you said that all the information I must obtain is fake informations like username, password, credit card information, address, all are fake. But my question is, why fake informations need to be obtained? Because I can put any information on my own. This itself is actually fake. So why not we get the actual information?
Very good question. I had a feeling somebody might ask. I'm glad you did ask. Need to explain this. Even though your question is like, why can't I put my real? Because this is fake. You said this whole thing is fake. It's gonna say priceline.dev.com instead of real Priceline, and you're within a network, a closed network. So it's gonna make a fake test case. It's gonna do a fake reservation. What's the big deal if I put my real information in here? Well, even though it is fake, it's really not. The whole lab is set up like real. The only thing that's not happening is you are not connected to the real world. You have a small world of your own network. Now, what if there is a breach that all on a sudden, let me get my pen tool out. 1 second. So here's the public network, and this is where your credit cards can really get affected. Here's your private network. You're trying to do your credit card information. If there is a breach right here, then this could actually go over here and do charge your account. So I wouldn't recommend that you use your personal information at all, because you don't know what's going on. These developers are building things. It's complicated and they make mistakes. So anything can happen. Now, what's going to happen is within this network, within this little area, private area that you got, your company is going to give you name of like 10 people, John, Stacy, Edward, and Sean, and Lupe, and so forth, and give you a set of credit cards that will actually go through this process and give you a reservation. Your company will not give you the ones that don't work. That's going to be, you have to make up those negative ones. That means you got the John, you got Stacy, you got Sean, but you don't have Korim. You don't have Ram. You are making up this Ram and Korim and fake credit cards to see if you're still able to penetrate and make a reservation, which you're not supposed to. But if you're able to do that like a hacker, you report that to your team as a bug. Raju, did I answer your question?
Yes, I got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Welcome. So
Okay, so
on,
Steve, I have one supplemental question with this question. Is that if any hacker or bad person create an website that resembles that it is a real website for booking a hotel, then how can I find that it is the black site or the validate site?
could you please say that again?
Actually, if any hacker or
Mhm.
bad guy create
Mhm.
a website that resembles that it is the real website,
Yeah.
and I drag that website for the reservation of a hotel.
Got it.
So
Okay. Yes. This
how
is how
can
you
I
do it.
understand?
You have to go in right here. This address bar, they cannot fake it. This Priceline.com has been registered to only Priceline.com. Now, what you want to see is make sure that this spelling is accurate or not. If I was a hacker, what I would do is instead of doing Priceline, I would maybe skip out this E and then
Yeah, instead of L, I can put 1 or something like that,
right, something that your eyes
or
will not
capital I.
notice. Yeah, you will like miss it. And that letter could be different and that could be registered by a hacker. And he could be displaying the same website and you're thinking on the right one and you make reservations and that could be hacker took all your credit card information and will be probably that money you may never made a reservation but the money went into their account. Yeah. So the only way for now that I will talk about is that there are some other ways, but this generally this is the first step that you need to take. Make sure it's Priceline, the spelling is correct. Okay.
All
So
right.
steps of the test case are the detailed description or instruction of how you need to get into and do those steps. So they have to be detailed, like very specific. Like, let's say you open up this window, and it has to be holistic, meaning start to finish. So you could say, go to Priceline. So this is example. Go to Priceline website. Click on login button. Type username. Enter password. Click submit. You get the point. Number 4, expected outcome or expected result, whichever one you want to say. I would say expected outcome. This is what the requirement is after the action. So test steps are basically actions, user actions. Okay. And expected outcome comes out of your requirement. So based on requirement, what does the product owner want? And examples could be really, there's nothing much to define or write about it. The name, the word itself explains what it is. An expected outcome could be that clicking submit button let's go even back. When you say go to Priceline website, your expected outcome would be Priceline website, Priceline site should load. That's your expected outcome. Every little step, you can have an expected outcome. You don't really need to. It makes too much work for somebody to write up all that. But if you want to, you can. I'm just going to give you that right now. But when we actually become a mature test case writer, you'll see a lot of this we are going to skip. But I want to give it to you anyway. So click on the login button. If you clicked on that login button, take a look at this. If I click on this sign in button, what just happened? What happened?
A pop-up window opens.
Correct. And that becomes your expected outcome. So for this click on login button, your expected outcome would be pop-up window should open. Try to use this should word and always stick to that because it creates a standard way of saying what you expect. Okay. Now, after that, you enter your username and password, and there's nothing really to expect here. But if you want to be a super nerdy, you could say, yeah, when you try to put your username, a suggestion should show up. Suggestion pop-up should show up. But don't kill yourself. Don't overkill this, overthink it, and make it complicated. Not really needed. But one thing, definitely after you click on submit button, this you cannot miss. After you click submit button, you should say that user should be logged in. Logged in. You could say it in another way. You could say user homepage should display. You're saying it differently, but you're validating the same thing. You're validating the same functionality, which is basically that user was successfully able to log in. And that becomes your expected outcome. Number 5, actual outcome. That means, did it really happen? When you went to go to Priceline website, did you really go to Priceline website? Did Priceline site load? A couple of things could go wrong. I mean, a positive is your actual outcome is Priceline page loaded. One day, it could be that page did not load. That becomes a bug. Or home page did not display. Some other page displayed, home page did not display. This could be your actual. Instead of Priceline, it could be Yahoo page got displayed. I don't know. You are the tester. So you're expecting this Priceline to be loaded. The other thing you could say, the Priceline the page came up, but page kept rolling, loading for over 30 seconds, meaning the server is very slow. And you can see some of the images show up, but entire page is not loading up within that 30 seconds or so forth. So you can create a performance bug ticket saying that there's something wrong in the back end for this page. It's not loading very well. Okay. Any questions on actual outcome? And last is called result. Sometimes it could say pass or fail. Okay. Pass or fail. This is where you compare. You compare what's expected, what is actual. If the Priceline site should load and Priceline site loaded in the actual, you would say pass. If expected meet actual, you call it a pass. If expected, if actual does not meet expected, so there's only two options here, it's fail. That is it, guys. So it's really that easy. It tells you what to expect, and you see if it expects, you call it a pass. If it doesn't, you call it a fail. If you fail it, you create a bug ticket. And then that bug life cycle continues from there. And you watch that, you give them feedbacks and so forth that goes to that direction. So really, you got, these are your most important components of a test case that you need to know and be able to describe, because this is your bread and butter of what you're going to be doing. Recruiter is going to ask you, and your answer should be really wonderful on this. Don't hesitate, because if you've been writing test cases for a while, then this should not be a problem for you to describe at all. At the very least, know these words right here. And if you want to throw some examples, that would be great. If they say, what is precondition? Say test data that a tester must have for him or her to be able to execute the test case. Like, then you say like username, password, and so forth. Use this username and password every time, because that is like the number one test data that you're going to need. Everything has username these days. And so many passwords that I can't keep track of passwords. I'm sure you have the same problem. Every site you have to have a password. And you're like, oh, I'm going to have same password everywhere. But hackers love that when you have same password everywhere and you never change your password. They love that. Test steps. This is probably the most important thing, because this is what the user is going to be testing. So if I gave you these test steps, 1, I have to really break this down into 2, 3, and you are going to be literally following this. Here's where your like work is going to be. And 5, and then you're going to do analysis based on what is expected, what you actually see after you do those steps, and then you make a determination whether you're going to pass it or fail it. Any question before we move to actually really writing the test case up right now with these ideas? Okay. You might hear another word called post condition. I don't see a need for this post condition here. Precondition is your prior data. Post condition is kind of like the same thing as expected outcome. So if you see a recruiter ask you that question, most likely the recruiter is using a script from way past, and he might be a little stubborn guy, and just tell him that post condition is similar to what is expected outcome. What are you expected to see post? Post means later. So just use that common sense in there. But really, these are the steps, and you don't need to know anything else besides this. Now, we're going to go into this requirement and we're going to do some of these steps right here. So let's go ahead and create this test case right here. User should be able to create an account, login. I'm not going to do creating an account. It gets very lengthy. Valid user should be able to log in. So let's write up this test case, and then we're going to write up this test case. Invalid user should not be able to write up. So you get a display of positive and a negative test case. It's been an hour and a half. Let's take 5 minutes and come back at closer to 10:30. I'm going to go grab myself a cup of coffee. All right, is everybody back? Just type in back on the chat. I tried to unmute all and mute all. I don't know if that button is working very much. I don't think that button is working at all.
Hmm.
But I see Stanley, sorry, I think there has been some background noise. It could be distracting. What I'll do is after explaining a topic, I'll go ahead and try to unmute everybody, and then you can ask questions at that moment, so that all the background noise can be during a question and answer session instead of actual lesson. But I've been trying to mute all. That button is not working, or I'm not doing something right, probably. Anyway. So here's open mic again, guys. I'm asking any questions for these components that you have before we move into actually writing a test case up. All right, great. Before we write a test case, there's a couple of things that I need to show you. One is every now and then I might say that look into your taskbar. And when I say taskbar, that's this right here. So anything on the very bottom bar is called a taskbar. And your most important applications, you should pin them down here. And the way to pin it is, let's say this notepad, I want to pin this so that every time I open up, it shows up right here. I can just click it from here to open up the notepad. You right click on your mouse and select the option pin to taskbar. And then it's going to pin it. Now, if it's already pinned, but you don't really need it, you never use it, like this Internet Explorer, I don't use that much. So I don't want it to bother right here and give me all this noise. I want to clean it up. I can right click on that and then say unpin from taskbar, and it's going to be gone from there. So organize your taskbar so that you only focus on important things. And that's number one right now is your Google Chrome, maybe the Notepad, and so forth. Later, it's going to be some other applications that I'm going to load on your device. The next thing is pretty big about this, and you need to know this. Let me go here. Your Google account. So when you go to your Google account or just type in Google, two things happen. Either you are logged in, meaning you are already signed in. Then in that case, you're going to see your icon show up on the top right corner. If not, this is going to be blank. So always make sure that you are logged in here. And it's not your husband's account or wife's account. It's your account. Because your account will give you access to the automation lessons and all the other things. If someone else is logged in here or not logged in at all, if you type in my website, it's not going to open. You won't get it. It's going to show there's nothing exists and so forth. Now, there's a lot of tools in here that Google has in this icon. So if I click open, it's going to open up all these tools that are there. Out of this, we're going to do a few things. Okay? And today I'm going to show you this Google Drive. By the way, you can organize these. You can click, drag, and drop, or pull up, and so forth. Google Drive is an important one, and a classroom is an important one. We'll start doing the classroom from next weekend. This is where you're going to submit your assignments. And I'll give you a rundown on how to do that. Your classroom might be way down here. This icon may be here. If that's the case, then you just drag and drop it all the way in the top so you don't have to go up and down on this stuff. Now, there's a lot of things, your photos and videos and YouTube and so forth. You can explore that. We're not going to need that, but we're going to need this Google Drive here. Now, this is where I'm going to go ahead and write our test cases today. But tomorrow, I'm going to show you how to take these test cases from here into the test rail. Now, the test case is a test case. Where you write it, that's your company policy, right? It doesn't have to be fancy where you write it. It could be anywhere. But your company might have a lot of money, and they may have other softwares where you write your test cases. Other softwares might be able to do a lot more than just this Google Drive. But when I started for this company, my own company, they didn't have any software. And they were so messed up on their stuff of testing. They didn't have a testing group, very well defined group. So when they hired me, they were telling me that they need organization and they need all these test cases. I'm like, where is your test cases? And they told me that we don't have it written down anywhere. We have one lady who tests those things, and it's all in her head. I'm like, what? The test is on in her head, meaning this woman, she knew the software, she knew the application, and she never wrote it down. She wasn't a formal QA person. They moved her from a different department to do this job. And she just did things on the fly. Wasn't a bad tester, but if I get hired and I ask her, hey, how am I going to test this? She has no documentation, no written down steps that I can take it to my office and I can start working on my own. And in fact, when I got hired and I asked her, she kept blurting up all the steps to me verbally. And I'm like, wait, I can't keep up. I don't understand. I need you to write it down. There's too many test cases you're telling me all verbally and I can't comprehend. It was a mess. Anyway, so what happened is we didn't have any kind of software and I needed to write up the test case. So I was like, is there a company login that I have where I have a Google Drive? And there was one. So in my company Google Drive, which was a Google company username and password, I have the Google account on. I went into the drive and I was like, let me just use the drive because everybody can collaborate and share. So I went into the drive and I created a folder called test cases. And inside that folder, now I have a lot of things in here, but I'm just going to take you in here. So inside this folder, I had this test cases. I provided access to all my teammates that, hey, you guys can come in here and then write your test cases in here. Obviously, they were not doing that because they didn't like it. They wanted to keep things in their head. But that's not how you create a big company. So inside that test case, I broke it down even farther. I created more folders, one for login, one for hotel. I'm just making this up for Priceline right now, suppose. Hotel reservation. the other for car reservation. You get the idea. So this would fill up all of this right here. And in login, I would go in here and I would put all my test cases. I can't put it here, so I could either use an Excel sheet or a Google Doc. It's your choice how you want to do this. But at the very bone basic, you would have to write it somewhere. I would use Google Sheets right now. Google Sheets is the same thing as Microsoft Excel. What's the difference? The difference is that Microsoft Excel is your desktop application. If you remember the difference between desktop and a web application, desktop application stays on your desktop and you can't share that with other users. Actually, you can, but that's a very complicated, high-tech ways of doing that, which you would never want to even waste your time in doing that. But in Google Sheets, it's already on the web and you can share this with anybody and everybody else can share and modify what you write. So I'm going to write it here. And that's what I did for that company initially. So I went in and I did a Google Sheets and I called the sheets called login. And as soon as I write the name, it automatically saves it for me. I don't have to do anything. See, if I close this window, what happens is I'm back in here. And if I refresh this, I should have seen that login. Oh yeah, I'm login and looks like it didn't add it. Let me try it again. So add a Google Sheet here. Google Sheet. Maybe I didn't put any data. Log in and just type in something. It says last edited seconds ago, and then it says save to drive. I didn't even have to hit the save button. And there you go. I didn't write anything in the body. That's why it didn't save it first. But now I have it. And I can close this window and go back in here and open this up again. And it's going to show up here. Let me maximize this a little bit so you can see the font. So what I did is I went in and I was like, okay, I need a couple of test cases and I'm going to number them. So I numbered them like test case 1 and test case 2 and so forth. But I also needed the steps. So what I did is this is what I did. I first wrote down the titles of those steps. So this is going to be test case number. So let's say I block this and call it test number. It's a 1. Test scenario that comes next. Precondition. And then steps. Then expected outcome and actual outcome and result. So I was doing it that way. And here's my test step 1, and here's my scenario. So for this login, I would write valid user should be able to log in. Log in. That would be what I'm going to be testing. And my precondition was credentials. Credentials is a one word of saying username and password. So I need credentials. Which username and password has a valid user and password? So username and password. In one word, you could say the word credentials. So I would need credentials. And here are my steps. Now, I'm going to take you to a website that you can actually test this username and password. This is one of the websites that we keep it up for running it. I'm in maintaining this site. The way for you to access this is, let me close up all these windows. Eats up the performance. You will notice under this test planning, if you go to the homework, in this homework section, you're going to see this homework that you have to do. This is the test case that you have to write here. So there's this link right here, and there's a username and password to go into this website. It's called techfiles.com. So if you click on that, it's going to take you there. And username and passwords are in here. And that's the username and that's the password. And you can use this username and password to log in. So this is ABC123. And hit login. It's going to take you to this site. It's a fake site. Some sort of commerce business site that has a lot of things in there that actually does create accounts and stuff temporarily. You'll be able to mess around with it. We're going to be using this website for you to automate test cases as well. You'll be able to see your code go in here and then click these buttons and do things, make reservations, transfer money, create a product order, and get stuff. So there's a lot in here that you're welcome to explore and do your exploratory testing, and come up with some test cases for me. So we're going to work on that. But right now, I'm going to focus on just log in and log out. Okay. So for login, valid users should be able to log in. That means my test steps are going to be first going into this website with the URL. So this has to be given. So this is a precondition. I'm not going to write it, but you understand that that will be a precondition. A precondition is going to be this username, this password. Once they give you all that, you should be able to, without any prior knowledge, just follow the steps and be able to execute the test case. Understand that a good test case, you don't have to ask anybody how to do it. Meaning, if you write it well, any tester should be able to use this information that's in here and be able to test and put a pass or fail right here without even coming back to you and saying, hey, Chisty, I don't understand what you wrote here, or what kind of username or password I'm going to need. They won't be able, they don't need to ask you anymore because you wrote it so well. It's all in here and they should be able to follow. Now, if you see that they keep coming back to you and they get blocked, that means that gives you a signal that the test case wasn't written very well. In that case, go ahead and fix your test case. Anyway, so right now, I'm going to go ahead and write up those steps for validating. So you saw manually. First, you got to need to see how it's done manually. You have to do your exploratory testing. You got your site address. You got this username, password. You clicked on sign in. You see it working. Excuse me. And you see this dashboard. See this dashboard page is getting displayed. And you see this TechFiles logo getting displayed. You see this tester. It says TechFiles tester. In fact, if you even go a little bit deeper in here, you may be able to see the profile. And if you click on that profile, notice the same username and password. Say at least same username displayed. Password will not be displayed for security reasons. But you see you are in the right account, not in someone else's account. So those are some of the validations you have to do. Anyway, you look at that and you're like, okay, I got it. I see what's going on here. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to validate login from here to that page. So first step one, I'm going to say, go to TechFiles site. All right, there's no fancy way of doing this. You don't have to worry about grammar or sentence structure at all. In fact, as simple as you can keep it, it's going to be easy for someone to understand. Now, if you want to go straight into the expected results, you can. But if you want to skip a few and then go for the nitty-gritty one, that's up to you as well. So if you want to be super nerdy, you could say expected result 1, TechFiles site should display. Or site displays. So if I go into this TeXFios site, if I type in this, put this URL on the site, does that login site display? You could be more specific. TeXFios login displays. And step 2, enter username. There is nothing to validate or expected behavior here. You're just typing in. But what if this you are unable to type in? What if this is grayed out one day? Something went wrong. So if you want to be fancy, you could say that user able to type in username in username field. That the field is not grayed out. It is enabled. Enabled is another word for being active, meaning it's open. We call this step 2. Excuse me. Step 3. Let me just go down here so you can see a little bit better and zoom in. So step 3, enter password. I'm going to go to step 4, come back to this later. Well, password, let's just say same thing right here, what we saw. User able to type in password in password field. Notice it's very detailed. When more detailed, the better, but you don't always have to work so hard to do all that. Enter, click on submit. Is that a submit button or login button? Sign in button. So you want to be more accurate and say sign in. Click on sign in button. Now this is the biggest thing. You could skip all of this and say, I'm not gonna write all this. This is stupid. I mean, it's common sense. The site is gonna open and stuff. And I just want to write the last step, but you must write this step right here. Okay, this is the most important piece of this validation of the sign-in feature. Now, what are you gonna write? Well, one thing you could write, and it's not just one thing, you could write many. You could say that, let's see what happens if I click on sign in. Okay, I can't say, yeah, I can say very generic, say user was able to log in. What does that tell me? User was able to log in. That's not detailed enough. Understand the steps and expected are going to be very detailed, very specific. You don't want to be vague here. So user was able to log in. I mean, yeah, I can see users able to log in, but my brain looked at several things here to make that determination, and you need to write that in specific. Here's one thing you could say. TeXFios dashboard will display. If this is a concrete way of validating that the dashboard page would not display if the user wasn't able to log in. Look at this. If the user is not able to log in, what happens? If I put in something fake and do sign in, I get this invalid username and password. This is when the user is not able to log in. So one of the things that you would want to write in here, and that will be in that specific validation or expected result, is TeXFios, or you can say dashboard in short, dashboard page should display. Okay. That will be your best specific validation. Did the dashboard page display? Now you can go a little bit farther and have 5 expected results, saying that when you go to this user profile, edit profile, that in this profile, the username that's displayed should match the username that you entered before. I'm not going to write that right now because I want to keep it simple. And when we do automation, I will show you how to do that. So we're going to go back in here and I'm going to just take this off and we'll be happy with some simplicity here. And let's do this. Now, these 2 columns, luckily, you don't have to write anything. What does that mean? That means only when you are executing this test case, meaning this test case got written. Now somebody goes in and reads your notes and says, okay, my boss told me to test these things. There's like 20 test cases here. You got only 1, but it's okay. So let's say there's 20 there. And they have to test these 20. Then they're going to use this like a form. They're going to reflect their data here. And then they're going to reflect information here and report this to their supervisor or whoever the stakeholder is. And then once that's done, they're going to delete this. Now, one way to do this is in that Google Drive, you can duplicate. You can just copy this page and create another page and call it like a test page. And then write all your reports in it without messing up this particular page. So there's that way to do that as well. In my company, I wrote this. Nobody ever tested this. They were so lazy, they didn't want to do it or have anything to do with what I wrote. Anyway. So what's going to be actual? How are you going to document that? Are you going to write so much? Who's going to read everything that you write? Really not much. You could, now if you want to be super nerdy, and you could go in and say, expected was tech file site displays. When I went into that site, tech files login page displayed. So it's positive. You could go little by little, say login page displayed. And that step, you can call it pass because they match. For this step, enter username. Yep, you could be nerdy and say, I'm going to write it up. You could say username field accepted the username. Nobody's going to read that, but you want to be 2 details. It's okay. Password, same thing. Password field accepted. So this is going to be pass. Well, what if one day the actual result was bad? It's like password field is disabled. So if you went in there and this password field is disabled, you can't even type in there. Yeah, that is something you do have to report. That's something you have to write up. And in that case, your answer is going to be fail. That expected was field available, but field not available. Now we're going to call it a fail. But let's say it was okay and everything is good, and you move into the next step and you try to log in. After logging in, you're noticing that you put in the correct login and a correct password, and you click on sign in, and instead of dashboard, you see this called user invalid. In that case, you would say dashboard page did not display. If that did not display, you're going to call it a fail. This is your test report, guys. You are going to take this to your supervisor or so, and it's not just one test case. They're going to see like a whole bunch of them, but they're only going to focus on what failed. Anything that's passing is not interested to them. Anything that's failing, they want to look at it like, why did it fail? Dashboard page did not display, but this is a user, valid user. So then developers are going to take that bug ticket from you, look into what happened. That's not your job of how to fix it and what went wrong in the code. Your job is to find out what goes on wrong on the UI, which is the user interface. Any questions so far? Any questions on this test case? Can you all hear me fine?
Yes, no question.
Yes, not for me. It's
Just
okay.
checking. What if the mic dropped or something and I didn't check the chat box? All right, cool. All right. Let's move on to a negative test case. So what I could do is make this into a box, write this and say, this is my one test case. And I'm going to have another test case. So let's put a box around that to isolate things. And I could say test case number 2. Invalid users should not be able to log in. Now I'm going to go a little bit fast because you understand this. So the credentials are going to be same. So the given credentials is going to be this username. This is going to be given to you. And password ABC123. That's your prerequisite. Test steps, almost same. You don't need to rewrite it. Just copy paste it. Okay. And then we're going to change things around. So you still have to go to TechFile site, obviously. The expected results still going to be the same. I'll go ahead and put a box around this. No, we'll do it later. So you go to the TechFile site, login page display, you type in, enter this, where you're going to say enter invalid username. But you're going to put in a password, valid password, meaning a password that someone's already selected before. So let's do it this way. You enter a valid username. Someone already created an account when you do a valid one. But for this password, first you come in and say you add invalid password to see if you can break into their account. So notice, if you enter invalid password, it would still let you enter the invalid password, so no problem on the expectation. User able to type in password in the password field. But right when you go in and say click on sign in button, your expected result should not be that I should be able to see the dashboard page now. No, because you added an invalid password. So your expected result should be this. Invalid username or password message displayed. So my expected result over here, I'm going to change it to that, in quotation, invalid username and password message should display. That is your expected results. Now, what happens if you try to test it and you put your actual results one day, and just make it a little fancier. You put in your actual results, everything is all good. This is what you find. Login page displayed, you call it a pass. Very good. That's a pass. That's a pass. But you put in a fake password, you were able to see the dashboard. That means you logged in with a fake password into somebody else's account. That means the developer did not put good logic to block fake users or the credential verification. In that case, you're going to fail this. Dashboard page displayed. This would become dashboard page displayed. So if dashboard page gets displayed, but it shouldn't, this is a negative test case. In that case, your statement is going to be false. Now, if fail, if dashboard page did not display, but you actually saw a username invalid and that got displayed, then you're going to call it a pass, and that will be a good, that the feature works as expected. Any question about this second test case that we just wrote? Okay. So would you be able to write this test case if that was in the homework? Your homework is going to be going into this site, logging in, and explore some of these features right here. You go to the CRM, add contact, and you want to write up this right here and do this, and then see how that goes and test it, and then write up all the steps. Just like I did it here, this would be your example of writing a test case. Now, you're probably thinking, my goodness, that's a lot to write. Do I really have to do all this for every single little feature? No. In fact, I'm going to teach you another way of writing these test cases. Now, this is called classic. That means most people are familiar with this. And good thing is, with the other fancy softwares that's out there, like TestRail, you load it up, you don't really have to write a lot. Only thing you have to write is like these steps right here. You don't have to write expected like this way and do all these things. That's too much. So I'm going to show you a futuristic way of writing these test cases. And that brings me to this concept that I need to teach you. It's called behavior-driven development. Okay, in short, this is called BDD. You're going to hear this a lot. It's very new. Everybody's very excited about it. And this is a new way of thought process of how you want to document things. It makes everybody's life very easy and is simple. Because a company is not only made out of the developers who has these coding skills, but also made out of executives that have business knowledge but don't have coding skills. So everything should be written down in a simple term that even developer and a non-tech savvy person can understand. And that is the whole purpose of this behavior driven. And what that means is the behavior of the feature. So we're talking about behavior of the feature. What is the behavior of the feature? Every feature has a behavior. This login button, this form, add contact, has a behavior. What is the behavior? You type in something, you put in your personal information or user information and hit submit button. The submit button has a behavior. If you submit correct information, it will go to a page to show you that user got created. If you put in fake information or unexpected information or information not allowed in the right place, in the appropriate places, if you hit the submit button, it's going to block you and say, well, you did not enter the zip code correctly because we only take numbers here, but you try to put in your name or put some characters, and that's not going to be allowed. It's going to block you for that. Like account name is required or something. So all of these behaviors, if we write down our all the work we do based on the behavior of the application, things get very easy for everybody to understand. So behavior-driven development is an approach of documenting the work based on the behavior of the application. That's all for now, but more I'll give you later as we go deeper into this automation on how we automate this same concept of this approach of behavior. But there are a few things inside this. And the test case that we wrote earlier in this Excel format, this is not quite the behavior-driven way. This is very old way, but most companies still use this. This is not new. And the recruiter might ask you, do you know behavior-driven development model? And if you say yes, oh my God, you're gonna be top of the line. And they're gonna like you so much more. You need to know both. If you know this basic, then and you know the behavior-driven model, then you are like the hot cake on the market. So I'll teach you both. In behavior-driven development, there is something called Gherkin. This is the test cases are written in Gherkin language. Gherkin. Gherkin. It's not jerkin. Don't pronounce it jerkin. Pronounce it gherkin, like G, like a goat. Okay. So gherkin, this word, what it means is it is a language. It is the language of behavior-driven development. The language of BDD or behavior-driven development. It's not a Chinese language or something new. It's actually English, but it consists of only 10 words, 10 English keywords. Very easy, guys. English keywords. 10 English keywords. And the words are, get you these words, called feature. First one is feature. All it is, this is where you write down the name of the feature. Like login, such as login. You could say transfer money. Buy a product. These are your features. So 10 keyword. Number 2, background. Over here, you could talk about a little bit of what this login is supposed to be, or this transfer money. Maybe detail about the feature. If needed, these are not mandatory. This part right here is going to become mandatory in automation. This, nobody cares about it. Detail about the features. It's always skipped. And then you got this background done. You got your scenario. Who can tell me what is scenario again? That you already done?
That is the title.
Correct. Title. Very good. Thank you, Justy. Title of the test case. So it's over here again. Then you have something called given. Can somebody tell me what is this given component compared to this 6 components here?
Is it the
The classic
precondition?
precondition. Absolutely. So same thing as precondition. What needs to be given to you? Number 5 is when. Where do you think this component matches with this right here?
It's something to requirement.
This would be the user actions or test steps. So user actions or steps. Okay. And then the next word is then. And in then, who can tell me which component here might be the then statement?
Actual outcome.
Actual and expected. And more so actual outcome, yes. I would go with that. But both of these can be combined into this. So you are actually doing both of these. You're checking the expected, you are comparing with the actual, and you're passing or failing right here. So all 3 of these have been clumped up together into one called validation. Notice this is validation. This is where your analysis is. You check your expected, check what you got, and pass or fail decision. So big umbrella under these 3 steps is basically validation, and this one is user actions. So they broke this down into, instead of writing all 3, they just call it then. So validation. Expected versus actual and pass or fail decision is made right here. Okay. There's another keyword, and I'm not going to write much in it. I'll show you in real how do we use this and word in just a second. Number 8, you might see but. I have never used this word but. 9 is scenario outline. I will show you how to use this in automation, but now, no, you don't need that. For manual testing, you don't need that. These are all for automation. Examples. So this is test automation. When you get to this, we'll talk about that. That's it. We got this. We got. I'll show you how we use this in a second. Don't worry about it. No need. You can live your life without that. These are your 10 words that you need to basically know. If they ask you deeper into this, what is BDD? What are some of the keywords of BDD? You're going to say feature, background, scenario, given, when, then. Say it in this order, because these are the most ones. And then there are several others. If you forget several others, it's okay. You don't have to know this 10 words by heart, by the way. In fact, if you know them by heart, that might seem like you are very nerdy, or maybe you memorized it for this interview. It could go either way. I could like it. I could think maybe you're fake, or I could think, wow, I like this person because this person is solid. I think either way, I'm gonna hire you. If you're able to give me like 6 of these, or if you give me all 10 of these, I'm gonna be like, yeah, I got this guy. And if there's a few things missing here and there, I can train this person and get them up to speed. But they know it so well, so awesome. I don't have to train the basics. These are the foundations. So, um, any questions about these 10 keywords? The other beautiful thing about Gherkin is Gherkin uses these languages, feature, background. It's very English, very simple. And when you're going to be automating test cases, you're going to be using the same word. It's not going to be a whole bunch of code that you're thinking, oh, I'm going to be writing computer code. It's going to be so complicated. Nope. It's going to be these. You're going to be using these words, English words, and I'll show you how it's done. So easy commands. So users, the wordings are very business readable. Wordings are business readable, meaning anybody can read this. Business readable language. Anyone in the company can understand. Anyone can understand. No complicated technical stuff. Gonna be that. You are able to use these words in automation directly, writing in your code. So it's used in automation through a tool called Cucumber. I'll teach you Cucumber in one of the last weeks of how to use Cucumber to use this language to write up your test cases and automate them like that. Requirements. When you write up the requirement, there is a design for writing the requirement. And I wish every company followed this. This is a really awesome way of requirements. I want to go back to what is requirement. Remember this page right here? We took the notes and we wrote Priceline requirements right here in SRS document. The new user should be able to create account button. This is the title of the requirement. And then deep inside that, the business analyst is supposed to, excuse me, it's supposed to write up the details of this scenario, of this feature. And they don't usually write it nicely. It's like mess. It's very hard to difficult to understand. That's the classic approach. But you want to use BDD approach, this is how you would write it. So let me just copy this right here, give you an example. Let's do this one. Valid user should be able to log in. So how would we do this? If I take this and write up a requirement, let me say this first. Requirement is written in this format. You have to memorize this. They might ask you you just fill in the bell blanks. This is like a sentence structure. So the syntax, sometimes called syntax, like a sentence structure. You fill in the blanks. I want, dot means you write whatever you need to write, so that, and that's it right there. Here's an example. Feature that. Actually, this is not feature, this is a story. Feature is bigger. Valid user should be able to log in. Now, how am I going to write this requirement? if a business analyst wants to write a requirement in BDD style, she's going to have to write it like this. As a valid user, notice I use this as a user, and then I'm going to use I want a login page with username field, password field, I'm being very detailed, field, and sign in button. And then I'm going to finish it off saying so that valid users, so that users with valid username and password can log in. Okay. Now, this is what you hope for being a QA professional, that your business analyst is going to write up the story this way. This is what the developers hope for. If they wrote up the story like that, it's going to be so easy for them to understand what it is that they have to build. It is so easy for you to understand that what they're trying to build and how you're going to test it for your test planning and so forth. Is it happening? No, because most people are so old and so old ways of doing things, and they don't want to follow any standard. So you might or may not find this practice in your company, but I'm teaching you this so that if you do get hired, you can encourage your company to move this really futuristic way of doing things. There are companies that are moving in this direction, by the way. And if you have this knowledge that you can share with them, obviously you're going to be number one on their list to hire you instead of that other candidate. Any questions so far? One last thing of this gherkin, I'm going to call it acceptance criteria. Just by this as AI wants, so that this is not enough for you as a tester to test these things. It's not enough. I mean, how do you know what's expected? How do you know to pass or fail it? How do you know you're going to grade that student's paper and where to put what score? That's where this comes in, acceptance criteria. A list of conditions that must meet is your acceptance criteria. Now, this is where the details go in. So when you're testing this, if it's a login feature, acceptance criteria should say how those login page should look like. It should say even to the color. Like if you go to that login page, it should say TechFios logo should display. Number one, TechFios logo should display. Okay. It should say username and password field should display. Should display. More the merrier. Better for you to understand what you have to test. The sign-in button should be green. Why not? I mean, it's going to be the same question developer is going to ask, like, okay, I'm going to put the button there, but what color? I need to know what color. You got to give me that. Can't just put a red color or something. What if that's not the requirement? So the requirement must have these things. The other thing, this forgot password link should display. Now, when the business analyst will list all this in a user story, it's called acceptance criteria. Remember this word, don't forget this. When you don't find this information for you to build a good test case, you can ask for acceptance criteria. Could you please give us the acceptance criteria? Or this story does not have enough acceptance criteria. How am I going to test it? Use that word. They understand what you're talking about. Unfortunately, are you going to find this detail? The answer is no. Because that business analyst is probably going to not want to write this because it's too much for her to write it. She's probably not gonna give you this. She's gonna write in her own way, little two things, half-assed way that you have to read through and understand, and that is one of the challenges that we have in automation. If ever business analysts ask you, then they are going to ask you, they're going to nitpick on you. They're going to say, so what are some of the challenges you have? They want to see if you really share this pain. If you share the pain, then you're real. Now, it's not always a happy job. Sometimes you're going to find this little complication. Nobody wrote things properly here. So you could just go and talk about this acceptance criteria at that moment. Just say that in my team, I've been in teams where I have the stories are written in very clear language, has acceptance criteria, but the current team I'm working on, it doesn't write the story in BDD style or does not have detailed acceptance criteria. It's very hard to understand. So it's kind of going back and forth with the developer trying to understand what they wanted to build or how am I going to test it. So I wish the whole company adapted to this acceptance criteria model or behavior-driven development model. So whenever you hear that question, what are your challenges? This is where you need to boast yourself. Oh my God, if you could just talk about behavior-driven development, you could say your company does not apply this idea. This is like a little trick for you. You're like, you never asked me about behavior-driven development, but you said what my challenges are. I'm going to be smart and I'm going to show you how smart I am on this behavior-driven development model. I'm going to throw in some 2 cents for you on how this is done. And my company is not doing it. And I'm working with my team to understand this. I'm training my team on this and they're trying to implement this. They're in small steps. Guess what? When you're going to be talking about it like that, you will see the interviewer shuts down completely and listens to you like a child. And trying to learn from you, in fact. And guess what? You got all the points on that book of interview. And out of 10 interviewees, you're going to be the one selected for this job. If you can shine here. There's a big area, and I'm going to leave it at this right now. Any questions about this? Let's go ahead and implement this idea to write up a Gherkin test case. So how would I write up this Gherkin test case for the same piece? Users should be able to log in instead of this complicated, way so much wording. Here's how it's done. Gherkin test case. Or BDD, whichever you want to say, BDD, behavior-driven development test case. It would look like this. It should say scenario. And scenario is just nothing but the same thing. Valid user should be able to log in. You don't need an Excel. You go like an English sentence. You go right underneath and say, start with given. Always starts with precondition first. So given a valid username, given username, let's be more concrete. Given username, and let me just copy the username. This, and so here's given username that. Remember the word I skipped right here called and? And this one is like, you got another given coming right underneath that. If you have multiple of this given and a multiple of this when and multiple of this then, instead of keep writing when or given and given and given, you say given and then and you say the word and. So kind of like this. Given a username, text files, blah, 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 and which if I write and right under given, I am really saying this is another given. And a password and a password, valid password, ABC123. Okay, that's my given part. That's it. I don't have any other thing. I mean, or you could even say, if you want to be more fancy, say and a site address. And the site address is this login site. You get the picture? You could be going on and on with this and if as long as you want to. You want to make it perfect, you want to overkill it, do it. Nobody's gonna yell at you. But at least you have to have minimum, which is this. I would say add that too, because if somebody doesn't know first time coming in which site to go to, probably doesn't know, then this would be helpful. All the information that's needed. So now you're done with the precondition, you start with when. This is the action. So what are we going to do? Here's the actions that we're going to look into. These were the previous steps that we did. So I'm going to copy this and see how we're going to use this. So I'll put it right here underneath. Go to TechFile site, enter username, password, and click on submit button. So look at this. When user, and understand that go to TechFile site, this is a user action. Enter password, enter username, and click on button. All of these user actions, that means they should go under when. When equals user actions. Okay, and then equals validation. So we don't have any then right here. Validation. The only then that you saw in that classic test case was this statement right here. Dashboard page should display, and all of these. But in Gherkin, you don't have to use all of these. Just take the last one. Dashboard page should display. That was your number 4 on that validation list. So we're going to write it up like this. User, when user goes to TechFile site and enters username and enters password and clicks on sign in button, I'm done. I'm done with all the user actions of when. Now my last step is validation. And that comes with the word then. Dashboard page should display. That's it. If you wanted to add one more validation, sure, nobody's going to beat you up for it. They might like you. You could say and. Now notice I'm not saying then again, because I already used up then. It doesn't rhyme well. I'm going to say and profile page should display that user name. Profile page should display that username, meaning this username right here, techfiles.gmail.com. What does that mean? That means you can go one more step after logging in. You can go to this profile page and make sure that it's that same username gets displayed and not somebody else's username, because that could be a bug. So you went ahead and did another validation right here and two things. Any questions so far? And this is it. That's your Gherkin test case. Probably about 20 to 30% companies use this style. But they want to use this style, but not enough candidates know how to use this style. It's so simple, only 10 words, but still they don't know it. You just know something that it's hot cake in the market, and you might be one of the very few that use this. As a matter of fact, I didn't know this when I started working for this company, because the training center I went to, they didn't know how to do this. But I ended up, I lucked out because I got the job with my manager who actually trained with the guys who build this model, who are the owners, creators of these models. So my boss taught me, and that's how I knew this. And then when I back into the training center to teach, I was teaching these concepts in there. Any question? I think I unmuted. Could you please paste in the chat? Okay, user should see if it was. All right, let me paste these notes in here. How far I did this. While I'm pasting this, feel free to give me a shout out. Can you all still hear me fine?
Yes, I can.
Okay, wonderful. Did I put anybody to sleep? Sorry, that was a lot of information. But look, this is great information. And this is it. After tomorrow, you guys are certified manual testers, because you now would be, you would know the knowledge of a manual tester that has been tested for 4 years. This is basically that they do, and they don't do it well. So if you do it well, you beat them in like 2 weeks. You beat these people that are working, making good money, $60,000 a year without any coding skills. And that's the end of tomorrow's class, is this manual testing piece. And from weekend after, you start your technical knowledge, and you're going to just go higher than those people that make $60,000. Now you're opening the door for $100,000 jobs. Okay. All right. Yeah, that was a very simple test case. So let me just go ahead and give you a
I have a question, Mridul.
Yeah, go ahead.
There is a but in those keywords. Does that have no word?
Say that again.
Those keywords, 10 keywords, there is one in, there's a but in number 8.
Yeah, the but, and you don't need this one.
We don't need it.
I have never seen it. In fact, I don't even know how to incorporate this into this Gherkin. This concept, by the way, is very new. You're not going to find much books out there. It's just online. Software engineers, entrepreneurs design these and they just put it online. So you might be able to find this information searching here and there. Some are complete, some are incomplete. I'm giving you the bare bone basics so you don't have to do too much of the searching. You don't need to read books on this because the guys that wrote the books, they're also not very familiar with this 100%, but they're trying to make some money. Universities don't even teach this because it didn't reach university yet because they're so bureaucratic that they for university courses it's going to take maybe 10 20 more years for them to wrap up a book, get it approved by their department to get this information into the students. Therefore, you're learning something hot and you can immediately get a job and start applying everything that's going to be taught in this program. It's not going to waste you time of 4 years of getting that degree and then still going into the market and find yourself that you don't know stuff and you can't really do hands-on. And they have to train you 6 months before you can produce something. It's a company loss. They don't want to hire these people that are coming out of these universities. They want to hire you who has experience. They don't have to train you, maybe very minimal couple of weeks of training, and you can start working right away. That's what they want. And this program is designed for that. Okay. All right, let's do a complicated test case on this and we should be done. Let me go into Priceline reservation. So
Before that, Steve, before that,
yeah, go ahead.
can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Okay. So the Gherkin or BDT test case, is it a proposal or rule?
It is a style. It's a style of software development documentation. Understand that when you're writing a test scenario, you're documenting. You're writing a test case, that's your documentation. You are going to be analyzed by your supervisor that based on how well you do this job, how well you write this. I mean, I'm a technical lead in my company. What am I looking for in my people that are working with me? I want to see that you come up with some test scenarios and test cases, at least one test case every sprint. I say one test case, but my expectation is probably 5 to 15 test cases every sprint, meaning every 2 weeks. If you don't have a test case, then my question is like, what did you do that last 2 weeks in your team? Did they build something? And obviously, I'm not going to catch anybody like that or even ask any questions like that. We're in professional world and that's not the practice we do. But in my mind, I would be like, if I see a candidate or if I see my teammate, it really, the last 2 weeks in the sprint, they didn't come up with a single test case. That gives me a flag that this guy is probably not doing his job, or maybe he doesn't know how to do his job. So either or. These are your documentation. How do you document your test cases? This style, this design of given, when, then is called the Gherkin method. So either you can call it Gherkin method, Gherkin style, Gherkin terminology, your choice. I'm looking for whether you have this, whether you can even say this word, or in my interview, I ask the candidates, are you familiar with BDD? If they say yes, then I ask some specific questions, or I can ask general saying, can you tell me what it is? Obviously, I'm looking for him to her to say it. BDD stands for behavior driven development. That's a must. First thing, you break anytime you hear the acronym, you always first sentence, you break it down and say BDD stands for behavior driven development. Then you go into the concept, what it is. If they want to know more, but they don't know what specific question to ask, then you design your answer based on this information. If they ask you specific, can you give me some of the keywords? Don't be afraid if they say, can you give me all the 10 keywords? Chances are they don't even know themselves. Chances are they don't even know what BDD is, so they would not even ask you about it. Understand? So this is a very, very latest, greatest method, and we're going to be using BDD in our program. We'll be writing test cases based on this. Even though I'm going to give you some assignments, like today's assignment is going to be you need to write test cases. You have to write test cases both in classic format and BDD format, in this format. Why? Because you might get questions from both ends. Because some of these components, what's the component of a BDD? Scenario, given, when, then, and. That's it. You got a given information, you got user actions, and you got validation. That's it. But if they ask you what are the components or parts, or try to nitpick you on some classic test cases, which they are very much likely because everybody knows this. Only few people knows the gherkin. So be aware that they are going to ask you about these. Although this is very old and horrible, they are going to ask you what is precondition. They're going to ask you can you tell me what are some of the pieces or parts that you use, or headlines or highlight that you use in your classic test case? Then you have to say there are these components or parts. They might say what goes in. They may not know the word component, all that fancy word. They might just say, what goes into your test case? Don't be alarmed. There is nothing else other than what I gave you. So always come back to this. What goes in your test case? The test case goes made out of scenario. Precondition goes into my test. I have test steps in my test case. Expected and actual outcome is where these comparisons are taking place and given a result, a report, a pass or fail. So just keep coming back all in here, no matter how they ask you that question about the test case. Any other questions? All right. Now, here's a real life, and I'm going to take you to Priceline. We're going to do an exploratory testing and come up with a top test case, and we'll end the day that way and explain the homework to you. We should be done for today. So I'm going to go to Priceline.com, and I just got hired. My team told me, hey, we got this test case. We got this. Actually, I can't log in here and really make the reservation. So let me go into this same Tick5 site, because actually we can do something here. And I'm going to go to something big, products and services, maybe new product. So you can put in a new product, and your team said, we need test cases to test this. So you're like, I don't know what it does. Let me check. So you went in first here. You went to new product. You see this panel gets displayed, and you see several things. There's a button called list product. There's a input field here, a field here, something already is placed right here. You're trying to question that. There's a description field. And there's this submit button. That's all you see. You scroll up and down. Make sure there's nothing else. Yes, everything else is empty. So you're like, you're just playing right now. You go in here, like, let me see what happens. I'm gonna first put in my fake name, John Doe. I'm gonna put nothing. I'm gonna hit submit. Let's see what happens. Item added successfully. That means I don't have to do any other information. You're like, huh, let me just hit submit without even putting a name. Name is a required field. So you're like, okay, I got it. This is a required field. These are not. But you need to check with your team. This could be a bug. What if sales price is required, but the developer did not code it as required? So you could create a bug ticket and talk to your team about it. But for now, you're like, I'm just going to put a positive test case right here. So I'm going to say, I'm going to put all of these. I'm going to use all these boxes to see if it messes up. So I put in name, John, and this is a product. Sorry, add a product, not a user, but it lets you add a name in here. We can just say iPad. That's a product. Sale price $1,000. Item number, I'm going to put in some numbers right here. And description, this is a tablet. And you hit the submit button and you want to see what happens. Scroll up, it says item added successfully. I'm like, but where is it? I see a button, list product. Let me see. Click on that. I see a bunch of products right here. Well, there's a search options. I don't see my product that I added, iPad, but can I search iPad? Search. There's that iPad, guys. And there's the gibberish number I added as 1,000. So it really got added. Oh, there's edit button, delete button. There's more features right here. I don't want to go there. Maybe that's the next test case. But let me go back to this add product again. This time I'm going to put a unique number. I'm going to say laptop 8,000. But over here, item number, I'm going to say QA test 123. And then say laptop. I'm putting this unique number so I can easily look for it. I'm going to hit submit. I see item added successfully. I go to list product. I don't see it here. I'm going to type in that QA underscore test underscore 123. I hope I did that 123. I don't know. Oh yeah. No. I forgot what I put in. Was it 1, 2, 3, 4? Laptop. Let's see all laptops show up. Or is there a bug? There's a lot of laptops. Wow. Oh, there. QA test 1, 2, 3. Funny, this same thing did not work here. So the search window may not accept that. So I go back up here. I copied it. Hit it right here. Search. Nothing. That's a bug, guys. Because I should be able to search this field by product ID. I couldn't. Okay, so laptop, I can search with that. And have to go all the way down. That's going to be a pain in the butt. And that's there. There it is, that and nothing in the description shows up either. What if I put that in the description field? Let's see if that works. This is called exploratory testing. You're seeing it real. So laptop again, $1,000. Item number, I'm going to put this in the item number and in the description. And I want to see if I can search that. Submit. Got
So
added. Yeah, go ahead.
Further going forward, instantly I should ask you the
Yeah.
item number. Who is gonna put the item number? The buyer or the producer or seller?
That will be whoever needs to use this to create the product.
Because you know the item number actually regarding the product, the item number depends, and that is set usually by the seller or the producer, not the buyer. So
That's right,
that might be a
Chisti.
cause.
That's right, Chisti. But see that is more like a business question, right? And that we don't really, we as a QA, do we really need to worry about that? We're not testing the business side of it. We're testing the product side of it. Like, does it work? Like the software, does this work? So the only thing that you need to worry about is like whether this is working or not. Now, this item number, this could be just a number and you won't be able to use these letters. That could be a requirement. So you would ask your team, hey, did the product owner want this to be only solid numbers? And if they say, yeah, user should not be able to add a QA letters or something. It's just going to be numbers. Then you're going to be like, hey, I found a bug because I tried with QA test and it did not throw me an error. It let me put that in there. You see what I mean?
Yeah, okay.
The other bug could be that, hey, it is numbers. It's only allowing you numbers. But when you put in like a lot of numbers, it fails. And then you can go back to your team and say, hey, is there a limit to how many numbers I can put in there? And they could say, yeah, this thing is only going to allow you like 15 digits. Anything more than that is going to break because that's how they want it. Well, if that's how they want it, even if it breaks, it's not a bug. It's not a bug because that's what's expected. It's expected to fail if you put in too many numbers. Understand the logic? Okay. So I'm going to go in here and list product. I know I put it in the descriptions field. I am doing this because I can't validate if there is not a proper way to validate this. So QA test automation right here, and I'm going to search. And guess what, guys? Nothing. This is bad. It's a bug. I would say it's a bug. They should have this requirement set so that I could be able to find it by product ID. Unfortunately, I can't. But if I wanted to still go ahead and write up a test case, looks like I can search up by this name field only. So for my test case, I don't really care if this name is ridiculous. I don't care if it's laptop, iPad. I just want to see whatever I add, does it show up? So how about this? How about I say laptop, and then I say that. Because I know now I can search with that. And I don't care about this number. And I don't care about this either. Just put in there. And hit submit button. It got added successfully. And I go to list product. And I go in here. And now if I do this QA underscore test underscore 123 and search, sure enough, I found my product. What does that tell me? That means at least that form is working. It's able to save this data in somewhere that I can still go and check it out. I added a product got added. I can pass my test case like that. With this information from my exploratory testing, now I'm going to design a test. And I'm going to jump in to the Gherkin test case. So here we go, guys. Test scenario. User should be able to add, or I could even say it like this. New product added should display in the list of products. Right. That means if I add the product, it should show up in that list of products page. It should stay there. It should not get deleted or should be available. List exists. So here's given. Given. I need the same thing. I need this username, password in this field. So I can just copy this whole thing. Okay. And you can keep repeating because every time you do a test case, you have to log in it into that site. You could keep on repeating this copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. Or you could say, somebody who has already logged in and done a login test does not need this information over and over again. Why don't we just say, given valid user logged in? Understand? You have tested this 100 times. You know what the username password is. You don't have to keep on writing this. You just write given valid user logged in. And then you start when, what's the next step? So you got to go back. I'm going to have to go back and walk back from ground zero. Here I am, user, valid user, logged in. That's it. I don't need to check whether dashboard gets displayed or not because I already did that on this test case. I'm done. I don't need to test it anymore. So I'm not going to put when user is in dashboard whether the dashboard display. No, I go straight to the test that you need to test. So how do I get there? Well, I need to go here. And how did I navigate to products and services? So that's what you need to write. Let me do it side by side here. Excuse me. There you go. And a little bit smaller. Make this a little bit smaller. A lot of space here missing. I'll just bring this back here. So my next step is when I go to products and services. So you use the word user. When user goes to product and services menu, this is a menu, and these are pages. This is called side navigation. And guys, side navigation. Right. So all of this is side navigation. And in this side navigation, you got this menu. And that's this one. All of these are menus. And you have pages right inside them. And those are, when you open up a menu, you go to these pages. Okay, so these are all the pages that are there. Now I just clicked on this menu and I said when user goes to product and services menu, and then I need to click on new products. So I need to go to new products page. And I'm not going to say then is a validation. I'm not validating anything here. Then, and user select, I'm just putting a fancy word, selects new products page, still and, enters a product name with unique ID. Why unique? So you can search and check to see if it shows up. So my next product might be iPad, and I could say a test, QA test, 1, 2, 4 this time instead of 1, 2, 3. And then I did that. My next thing is I'm going to put a price. So I could say enters a random price. Enters a random price. And this random is beautiful. I'm going to show you using Java how you can randomize a price in here. So every time it's going to put in like a number that's going to be automatically randomized when you get to the automation part of it. It's awesome. So random price. So your choice. That means you could put 500 if you want to. 555. Doesn't really matter. And notice there is already a default right here for item number. So I'm not going to change that. Just leave it. And enters a description. Random description. So I added a random description there. Don't really care what that is. Doesn't really affect anything. I am still on user action. I still have to click on the submit button. So that's still under this when category. So I'm going to say and. Clicks on submit button. So I click on the submit button. Now what happens? Guys, notice that you as a QA, you should put a validation for this. This is sometimes called a toaster. The word toaster. It's kind of like in a toaster machine. The bread comes right up when it's done. And this message comes up like that toaster machine. So they use this term called toaster. I think it's really awesome. So this toaster message shows up saying item added successfully. You need to make sure that this shows up because one day it's not going to. And you might be like, was it even there before? And you might forget. So when you see it, you're like, I'm going to put that on my validation here. That is my number one validation. Then I can go into the next validation. So you go in here and like, now I'm validating. I'm not doing anything right here. I'm not clicking on a button. I'm not really typing anything. No user action. So I'm going to say then. Item added successfully. You could say the word toaster should display. Should display. And even bring it farther back. Display. Okay. Okay, that's your good validation here. It got displayed, but come on. Just by saying item added successfully doesn't really prove the item really got added or not. You need to go one more step farther to really, the word is assert. You're going to see this in automation. Assert is a fancy word for validate or or make a decision after validation. Make a decision after validation. That's called assert. So for you to assert that a product really got added, you have to go one step farther and click on list products. So your test case goes like this. Now that you have to click on list product, this would not be validation. This would be action. So you would have to write it with a when again. When user clicks on list product button, so I click on it. Well, that's not it. I still have to type in what was that QA ID. So I have to still say and part of this when statement, and I'm still in action. For my second validation, I need actions. So I'm adding those actions for that second validation point. And user types or user enters unique ID. Remember that unique ID we put into the product name. So enters unique ID into search field. I'm not going to define what search field is. It's too basic English. You guys understand it. I don't want to bore you. So into search input field, being more detailed now, you will see in automation language, we're going to be using these words. Search input field. These are called input fields. So I add the search input field in that QA underscore test underscore 124 was that unique ID that time. I still have to click on search button so that I have to write that up. If you don't write it up, your QA tester may not be smart enough to understand what they have to do next. No common sense, but still. Then click on search button. So click on the search button. That's it. I don't have to do any more button pressing or entering anything. I just need to check to see now it's a intelligent decision. I have to assert whether something got displayed and whether what got displayed, does it match with what we did, the unique ID of the product that we created. So my next step is not a when for user action, but it's a then statement. Then the new product with unique ID should display. And that, my friend, is a very, very beautiful test case. And you may or may not find your company has these beautiful test cases. It might be hodgepodge, very hard to understand and read. You may have to go back and forth, and you may have to go yourself and fix those test cases for your company when you get hired in. But if you practice this way and you be the best so that you can get the job and you can go in and become a senior QA someday, and then you can train. You can become a QA manager someday and train people that are under you on the industry standard way of writing these test cases. Any question about this test case? This is an end-to-end test case, an example. So this is an end-to-end. Meaning it's not smoke, not sanity. It's a solid test case. End-to-end test cases are the most preferred, high priority, and highest priority regression test cases. This would go into your regression suite of test cases because it really checks major functionality on this website. That was a lot, and this would be a good time to ask questions.
Okay. So can I ask one question?
Justy, you can ask as many questions as you want.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
This is QA now. Yeah.
Thank you.
Q&A.
So, can the test engineer propose to modify the page to the manager?
Yes.
Can.
You saw that there was a little issue here. You are welcome to say that, hey, what is the requirement? Is item number not searchable? That when I go to product list, I can't search it by item number? And if they say, yeah, that wasn't on the requirements, well,
Actually, I'd like to say that the design, everything goes well, but if there is some feature to be added with the page, then it might be users friendly.
yes.
Like before submitting, so the users could have the option to review their order.
Yes.
So that could be added with that.
Absolutely.
And there are some fields that to be compulsory, making the asterisk mark, and
Yes.
some could be optional that might not be required but is better if added.
Absolutely. You are so true. And you are going to see that in many, even in your banking sites, where you're going to see this asterisk saying that you must have it. And absolutely, you can recommend this to your team, that these are mandatory fields, but this is optional. You could even recommend they write optional here. That would be a good thing to review. When you hit submit, the review pop-up that you mentioned, to actually review the information, make sure they are accurate. Just one extra step to check before you hit the submit button is a very good practice. Now, I'm glad you brought this up because where do you stand as a QA? What is your responsibility? Your responsibility mainly is look at the requirement, not so much of the design. Design doesn't fall on you. You look at the requirement. Was there a requirement for this asterisk? If it was, you have to put it in your test. You have to design a test case for this asterisk alone, maybe a separate test case, just to see if those asterisks are getting displayed. If this review window was required, you don't have to have a separate story for this or test case for this. You could just put it in your analysis right here. You could say, after I click on the submit button, this pop-up should show up. You could put a validation point here for this pop-up. So you could easily incorporate this requirement into this one test case, and you don't have to have a separate test case. It's kind of like this. They told you to go inspect the house. So you got a house, and you have to go through and inspect the house. But you're like, oh, that's a big house. I can't do it in one day. You're like, this is the layout. Here's how you're going to enter. There's this, closet right here. There's a living room right here. There's this bedroom right here. There's kitchen right here. There's a balcony right here, so I'm gonna go test some of these today, and then some other things I'm gonna do it tomorrow. Well, you're like, why don't I just, if I have to test this balcony, I have to walk through this living room already. I have to go through the kitchen and then go to this balcony. I don't need a test case just to test the balcony. Why don't I wrap all of this together? Because I have to walk through this living room, I can just see if the sofa is there or not, if this dining table is there or not. Okay, good. Moving on to the, kitchen. Is the kitchen sink is there or not? Yeah, it's there. And then go to the balcony. Is the fire pit is there or not? Got it. Okay, I got wrapped up all 3 tests right here into one test case, and I'm done. I'll come back next day to check the bedrooms and the closets and the master bathroom. And then you do all of those together. So in some cases, you may need to wrap a lot of the validations into just one single test case. Other times you have to decide, nah, it doesn't really go well. I'm going to put the validation of that other thing in a separate test case. Take a look at this. You are actually testing 2 pages here on the same test case. You tested not just new products, but you actually tested another page called products, which is the same thing as list products. Look what happens if I click on products. It's the same as the list products page. And you can go in here and put in that unique information in here and be able to search it. So in one shot, you kill 2 birds, so to speak. You're going into 2 different pages and testing 2 different things, or maybe more than 2 different things in just one test case. But is that enough? No. You have to test more, because there is this add service button here. There is this edit button here. There is this delete button here. And what about this link? They do something. Didn't we say we test functional things? Yeah. Anything that's interactable or functional and needs to be tested. That means you have to have some sort of test case, either one test case to wrap up all this or multiple test cases to wrap up all this. If you can do it in one test case in intelligent way without overburdening it, you become that best QA. If you wrap up one test case for each of these, you are a beginner QA. You'd have one test case for edit button, one test case for delete button, one test case for link button. You are a beginner QA. But if you see, I can actually do this edit button while I'm interacting with this, I can wrap up this whole thing into one and do it so that it doesn't become complicated. You are an expert QA. That's what's going to define someone from a entry level versus someone who is very seasoned. And you may get questions from in your interview, similar type of question. They're going to try to probe you to see how you see things, where you are. Are you a beginner level or are you an advanced level? Very thought-provoking type of person, very analytical type of person. Any other questions? One last thing, since Christy, you brought it up. Be careful of how you want to recommend, because you are a QA and you're supposed to only test what's required. Even if that was a good idea, you might get, shut down. So if you go in here and you're like, I need, what if we do the asterisks? You want to be very gentle when you suggest that. You don't want to say this should have asterisks, because they might perceive you as you're trying to overpower yourself. That design rests on BA. Okay, it's on product owner But does that mean that business analyst knows more than you? No. Product owner knows how to design a product better than you? No. You might know how to design the product better, but they may not. But if you try to tell them how to do their job, they may not like you. Does that make sense? Your goal,
Yeah, it makes sense.
your goal is not, I mean, if you try to be smart with them and give them this wonderful idea, that is going to backfire on you if you're in a wrong team. You kind of have to get the feel for it. Does your boss like that? Do they allow for? Because I know in my team, my business analyst, she did not even respond. Every time I suggested a, an enhancement, or this is how it should be for user experience, she did not even look at me. She acted like I don't even exist, and anything I said, it was nothing. She kept looking and changing the topic so that completely like slap on my face. I got that, and I was like, okay, it's not my place. I backed down. Really, I am not gonna be evaluated if this asterisk was there today or not. Nope. I'm not gonna be evaluated if there was this review window or not. Nope. I'm gonna be evaluated on what was the requirement, and did I test it and did it fail? Even after I tested, failure went to production. Yep. They're gonna get back to me. Executive is gonna come back and say, what happened? How come the user is able to write the name and not have a price and a product number and be able to submit this? Because now we have a whole bunch of these products with no item number in it. If I don't test that this was a mandatory field, that I leave it blank one day and then don't test it with leaving this blank, and this bug went into production, I will get blamed. QA will get blamed. So my advice, always focus on what's most important to you. That's what is the requirement? How do I test it? Make sure there's no bug. If your team is very happy, open-minded, agile, the idea is agile because there are some waterfall type of open-minded people. That's like they don't want testers' input in design. You don't get to. But see, the agile, the whole idea is anybody, anything. So a QA recommending a business analyst to design that little piece, talking to the developer to design all that, working together hand in hand, that's called agile. And that agile, a lot of people might be bragging about it. Oh yeah, we employ agile in our workplace. Well, I don't see that because you're not open-minded to taking suggestions. We're not working in a flexible team. Obviously, I'm not going to say that. Why would I? I get money, pays the bills. I do my job. As long as I keep myself out of trouble. That's what I would recommend you guys. All right. Any other questions before we move on to the homework and close out for the day? All right. I did say, did anybody need assistance in getting access, watching that video on TestRail and getting access? Did anybody need assistance? It's an open question. I'm going to post this. You can unmute yourself and share. Let me see how far I did here. Let me post this note so you have it right away, because sometimes I may be a little delay on posting these notes. So I need to copy from here. There isn't much. Okay. That's the end of the notes. You have it. I'll post it. And I didn't get any answer from, did anybody need any TestRail download assistance? Okay. So you can do that today. I'm not grading you on it. Okay. You're gonna see me demo this to you on TestRail tomorrow. I'll show you how to write stuff. So even I did not install it on my device yet on the new computer that I just got. So you're gonna need it tomorrow. You may not need it today. You're gonna need it tomorrow. And I want to see a demo from you on this TestRail next weekend. So I want to see that you can operate this thing and you have some test cases in there. So your homework is going to be for TestRail due next weekend. What's your homework for today? You have to write test cases. So tomorrow, you're going to, first thing, we're going to start the class with you demoing your test case. So how are you going to do that? Here's the test homework. You go to this TextFile site. So I put in steps format. So you click on that, you go to TextFile site. Obviously, this username and password is not going to be there for you first time. Then your Windows might save it for you. Enter username and password. Do that. Sign in. Do exploratory testing on any page. Guys, any page. So you go in here. Don't try to go into the first one. I always see like everybody doing the same thing. So be creative. Go somewhere in little messy areas here. What about settings? Look at this general. And then pick one. Play with it. Play with the feature and see if there's something done. Like the submit button here. There's a submit button here. See if something happens. See if you find an end-to-end test case. Just like I did on that ad products. And write minimum one. If you can do more the merrier, because it's going to be better practice for you. But if your family time does not allow you to, don't worry about it. Just do one. Because we'll have more opportunities to write these test cases later when we automate test cases. So, but at least if you don't do one, this information is not going to stick in your head. And you're not going to you might pile up study for you later. So do that. Give me one classic test case and give me one Gherkin test case. I don't care where you write it. You want to use a notepad to write it? Fine. You got a Microsoft Word? Fine. You have Microsoft Excel? That's fine too. You wrote it on a piece of paper? That's fine too. You take a screenshot, email it to yourself, and you're going to demo that emailed image of the picture you took. But do that ahead of time, please. Don't take up class time. So I want to give you about 5 minutes each person. Just what you're going to do is you're going to come here and say, hey, I was playing around here and I got this. I went to reports and I went to account statements and I found this right here that I can create, choose an account and then view account. And it opened up this and I can export. And here's my test case. I wrote up this test case for this particular feature. Then you show your test case. If you want to use Google, great. No extra points or anything for where you write it. That's not the whole idea. You can do it just like I did it, or you can do it on a notepad. I don't really care. All I want to see is where did you do the exploratory testing? And then you explain what that feature is supposed to do. You demo it to everybody. Like, hey, I went here. This feature is actually interesting because it takes this and this. I don't know right now. Right now, I don't know what this view statement is supposed to do. I have not gone through everything here. Even if I'm a teacher, I didn't. So I'm going to learn something from you. You might find something here that I've never seen, even though I teach this site, but I have not explored everything because I never need it. So go into the complication, find something, do it. I will be able to give you feedback on what you did wrong. Because right after I understand from you what the feature is supposed to do, I can give you some pointers on your test case. Hey, you might even come up with a perfect test case that says I won't be able to even add anything to it or even update anything to it. Then you can give yourself a pat on the back. Or if I gave you some pointers and saying, oh, this is how you should do this, and then you can take that as an amazing learning experience and you grow from that and you're done. Either way, it's going to be an amazing experience. So please do write your classic test case and a Gherkin test case. I want to see those formats. 5 to 10 minutes demo for you guys. I wrote this acceptance criteria. It's like just to kind of throw in there that I showed you what that acceptance criteria mean. That means your Gherkin test case must have given, when, scenario, given, when, then format. So if I don't see that, then it's like, no, you must have that. An acceptance criteria for classic test case. I want to see these components: test scenario, test case. You don't have to have test case. It's like repeated. You can just have test scenario, precondition, test steps, test data. Don't worry about it. They just add a few more things. This could be a precondition. Expected results, actual results, and pass or fail. So I do need to see those, the steps that I showed you. There's optional information here. This is class notes from my previous sessions class. I think I did better class notes with you guys. So, but this information is there. There's some sample test cases are there. You are welcome to look through that if you need to, but I really highly doubt it. You probably don't need to. Some of these things are going to be very much repeat. So this is as I want so that you might still see it here. Okay. Any questions about the homework expectation? I'm going to leave you with one last thing. Very often, yeah, when I went into the interview, they asked me this witty question that, how would you test a coffee maker? Okay. So I'm like, what kind of question is that? I'm a software tester, and she's asking me how would I. That's the job I got actually. So she said, how would you test a coffee maker? I've even heard, how would you test tying a shoelace? That was really silly question, but I like this coffee maker. Anyway, it threw me off guard, and I'm like, what does she mean? She's like, so so I asked her follow-up questions. So what are you really looking for in this answer? Guys, there's one trick. Whenever they ask you a question and you don't understand the question, if you always, first of all, take a few seconds to, don't respond right away. Take a few seconds. It's normal. It actually shows you're smart, that you're really synthesizing, you're organizing your thoughts before you blurt out. You're not a kid. You ask a question, they answer everything that's in their mind. You're an adult. You process the information. So there's a little 2 cents little tip for you that usually I talk about it in your market classes. So take a few seconds, synthesize it, and if you still don't have it, what you do is you ask follow-up questions. You ask clarification question. You ask clarification question like, so what are you really looking for in this? You're doing two things. One, you're getting another angle of question from them. Number two, I'm not going to write this down. Number two, you actually bought a few more seconds on the back of your mind to synthesize your answer. They don't know that, but they might be smart enough, and they may know that you actually bought some seconds. Your brain just needed 10 more seconds to figure this out. So you threw a question, kept them busy. They come back with a follow-up question. You know the follow-up question. You know this question. You just needed a few more seconds. Or you needed a clarification, whatever that might be. This is a very good strategy that you should use. So I asked, what are you looking for? Well, you write test cases, so you have different steps that you follow. Can you tell me how would you use your test case to test this coffee maker? I was like, okay, got it. Let me see. So I said, I have, test scenario when I write a test case. So I went into the classic style because at that time I did not know what BDD was. I didn't know Gherkin. But if I knew Gherkin, man, I would have shined over there because they didn't know Gherkin at the time. So I was like, I have my scenario. So the scenario is going to be, and I was so nervous. It was horrible, but they loved it anyway. Scenario was coffee maker should be able to make coffee. I was really searching through my head. And then my precondition, and I use the word, do we use this word? Because they're looking to see. They didn't ask you what precondition is, but they're trying to sneak on you saying, does he use these words? If he does, he's in this industry or not. So precondition would be um, user manual. I have a power outlet. I have access to water. Coffee, ground coffee. Promise you, I wasn't able to answer all of these. I was probably like throwing outlet, power outlet. I'm gonna need like a water, ground coffee. I was like that. I forgot about the user manual, but it didn't matter. But I'm just telling you right now, you could go around the road and say, I need a filter. I need a pitcher. You can be as funny as I need a finger. Be funny, guys, when you go in there. Because you're going to need to press those buttons. You're going to need somebody's finger. So if you actually do that, you say something silly like that, it not only shows that not only you know the topic, but you're so smart. You're so witty. You're just going in there and trying to make fun out of these things, and they might have a laugh, and the whole atmosphere of that environment could be like awesome. And they just want you. They see something in you as a character, and they're like, okay, forget he knows half the stuff that we asked. We just like this personality. We're gonna hire you. And now you go to steps. And I said steps first. I just kind of went in like that, like power, um, plug the cord, and then go in and put all the materials, place all ingredients, meaning I'm going to keep it short. The water, the ground coffee, and the filter and stuff like that. And step number 3, turn it on or press the on button. Okay. And expected is coffee should come out, preferably good coffee. And actual, if the coffee comes out, then it's a pass. And if it doesn't, then it's going to be fail. And that's going to be recorded into the results section. And I could see eyes open up into the interviewer, and I was looking at the eyes, and I'm like, okay, let me see what they're thinking. And several things I said right here, I could see like they're getting astonished. As a matter of fact, I was so nervous. She could see that I'm very nervous, and but she gave me a feedback. She said that, wow, some of the things you said, I couldn't even think about it. I was like, okay, in my mind, I'm saying, yes, I nailed it, or I hit the buttons I wanted to hit the. So be prepared that you might get these witty type of questions, and if so, try to apply it into the concept that I gave you. Any last comments, remarks, anything before we close today's lesson? All right, guys, thank you very much. It's been a very long lesson. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Please try to log in before 9 so we can really get started with the demo. We will start sharp 9 o'clock with demos. Stopping the recording.